books or the text that you want to pick up. So I'll drop in the chat, if it hasn't already been dropped in there, the hub link that Yolanda has so lovingly created. And yeah, I think we'll go ahead and get started so that we can have our full time this time. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Abdullah to lead us through week 2.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you to everybody for joining today. I hope to have a really robust conversation. We've changed the format just a little bit to make it a regular Zoom rather than a webinar so we can engage more fully. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we'd love to have you offer comments or questions in the chat function there, and we'll be sure to address them as we can. But what we're going to be talking about today is this idea of solidarity, and we're going to talk about what solidarity means and why solidarity is essential to how we get free. And so we're going to be going over some ideas. A lot of this conversation is going to be guided by the first 6 chapters of Black Power, again, which is serving as a guide for the first portion of this class. I hope everyone's picked it up, by Kwame Ture and Charles Hamilton. Again, we want to encourage you to pick it up at a Black-owned bookstore. Please don't buy on Amazon. But if you're in Los Angeles, please go to places like Esalen Books, Malik's Books, and purchase and support from small Black-owned businesses, Black-owned bookstores especially. So I just wanted to get us started the way that we have been doing, or one of the things we're committed to doing in this class, is making sure that we start with the correct energy. And so we're going to start every class with a land, labor, and life acknowledgement. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer to read this first slide and begin by leading us and taking a deep breath in and out before you start reading. So if someone could volunteer, that would be great.
And if you want to participate, just go ahead and start your camera and unmute yourself.
Do we have anybody willing to read this first slide? Yes, Chastity. Chastity. Are you able to unmute? Okay, so I think they need permission to unmute, Yolanda.
They have permission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with a deep breath. So a deep breath in through your nose and then out through your mouth. This land that we inhabit is physically situated in the original ancestral homelands of the Tongva people. We pay respect to the Tongva and all the indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout their historical diaspora.
Thank you. Can someone read the next slide?
I could.
Great.
Okay. If we could just take a breath in and release the breath out. We pay homage to those who were stolen from Africa, placed in bondage, falsely named as chattel, and forced into labor, who were called slaves, but never submitted as such, who have always been fully human, with an unbroken connection to the divine and to each other. We honor our African ancestors and the still unpaid labor which built what is now the Americas.
Thank you. And one more, we need one more volunteer to lead us through this last slide.
I'm happy to do it.
Great.
Let's take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. To both our Indigenous and African forebears, we commit to the continued struggle for liberation and reparations, for it is only through freedom and justice that we truly give honor. Aho Ashe.
Thank you. I needed that. I feel different now. So thank you for everybody who shared and was willing to volunteer. We're going to ask that you consider doing this each class. So think about when it's your turn to volunteer, because it won't be a surprise that it'll come up at the beginning of class next week as well. We didn't do introductions in the class, and there are a lot of folks, so I don't want to spend up the class time going around. But what I would like is, as we engage, because this is the way that we're formatting things now as a regular Zoom, I hope that we'll have lots of engagement. As we engage, I'd love if you would share your name, your pronoun, your organization, if you're with an organization, and why you decided to take this class. So as people come in to engage, we're going to ask you to cover those 4 things, okay? All right. Another thing I wanted to start incorporating into the class is we've been talking about, we have a chant in Black Lives Matter, but also in the union movement, that when we fight, we win. And a lot of times as we engage in righteous struggle, it can become exhausting, right? We can become overwhelmed, we can become depleted. And a lot of that has to do with not celebrating our victories. And I think it's really important that we celebrate our victories. Last class, we had an opportunity to celebrate a victory that was won with the conviction of Derek Chauvin, right? So wait, did we know he was convicted? We did know, okay.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we did.
We know, okay. Okay, good. I'm going, wait, what's today? Yes, we knew Tuesday, that's right, okay. All the days are running together. So we talked about the conviction of Derek Chauvin. We talked about the role of Black community, especially our young warrior, Darnella Frazier, and how she helped to summon in that victory. We have to take a moment to appreciate our labor, to appreciate our energy, and to appreciate the victories that are sure to come when we fight. That's what it means when we say, when we fight, we win. So what I'll do at the beginning of each class is just talk about the victories that I know about, and then invite you to offer other victories that need to be acknowledged in this space. So I have 4 for us. The first is, on Sunday, we had a massive defund the police rally and march in the name of George Floyd. At least 500 of us gathered in Pan Pacific Park and then marched to 3rd and Fairfax. We were joined by young people. We were joined by families of those killed, including the family of Dijon Kidzee, John Horton, and Waukesha Wilson. We had music, we had dance. We've decided we're gonna make our first Black Lives Matter music video because the dancing in the intersection was such a good time, and you can go to our Instagram page to watch it happen live. We have a phenomenal dance instructor / choreographer who's a member of Black Lives Matter named Karina, and she led us in a great dance. And so we want to uplift that took work, and it also shifted things a bit. Even if you don't feel it in the immediate, it shifted things a bit. And the families that were there absolutely felt that shift, as did all of us. Second victory I want to lift up is the City Council for Los Angeles and the mayor have been trying to appropriate our language using terms like reimagining. They tried to present the budget differently this year, the budget proposal differently this year, pretending like an increase to LAPD funds is really a decrease. And we held their feet to the fire and participated in a kind of listening session, which we weren't sure if we were going to be included on, but we decided to do a mini presentation of the people's budget on Monday evening, where we talked about what the people of Los Angeles actually want their dollars to go to. So we're counting that as a victory, especially because we were also able to get them to agree to participate in a full presentation of the people's budget. That's coming up next Thursday, May 6th. The big one that I'm celebrating today is we got Senate Bill 2 out of the Senate Judiciary. Senate Bill 2 is called the Kenneth Ross Jr. Police Decertification Bill. Many of you know that California is one of only 4 states in the country that doesn't have a mechanism to remove the guns and badges of police when they kill people. Kenneth Ross Jr. was killed in 2018 in Gardena, California. The cop, Michael Robbins, who murdered him, had already shot 3 other people in a different, and when he worked for an Orange County law enforcement unit. So had he been decertified in the beginning, he wouldn't have been around to steal Kenneth Ross Jr.'s life. So it took some doing. There were a lot of supposed progressives who said that they were not going to vote in favor of the bill. And then we did what we do. We had calls pour in and we worked every angle we could, and we flipped all 4 of the votes that we targeted, and we got Senate Bill 2 out of the Senate Judiciary. If you have time or think to do it, please thank Senator Steve Bradford, who was the author of the bill and who refused to waver on the bill. We still have several steps to go. The next step is appropriations. And then finally, I just wanna uplift a victory that students won at Cal State LA. They introduced a resolution in Academic Senate yesterday that will sever ties with law enforcement. So both defunding campus police, they get about $5 million a year, and they want to defund the campus police. They also want to sever all contracts with all law enforcement units, and that passed with only 8 senators voting against it. So that's a tremendous victory. Are there other victories that need to be shared before we jump into the meat of the conversation today?
Looks like Marissa shared one.
Let's hear it, Marissa.
Marissa, you want to join us on camera and tell us?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Oh,
You
sorry.
didn't brush your
Adjusting
hair.
my computer here.
Okay.
Sorry. Hello. Hi, Dr. Abdullah.
Hi.
I've been following you. Just very honored to be in this space with you. So the Anti-Asian Hate Crimes Act passed with a bipartisan vote last week. So for those who may be new with this is towards tracking hate crimes against AAPIs. But I think for me, the fact that it was bipartisan, it wasn't just the liberals, but the liberals and the conservatives, like all kind of voting together. I personally thought this was a small win, a step towards, I guess, liberation. So.
Absolutely. And Marissa, remember we were asking people to introduce themselves. Do you mind just introducing yourself? Your name, your pronoun, if you're with an org, and why you took this class.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Marissa Hamamoto, she, her pronouns. I'm the founder of Infinite Flow, which is a nonprofit based here in Los Angeles and a professional dance company composed of dancers with and without disabilities. Our mission is to use dance to promote inclusion. And I guess I'm coming into this space as an Asian American who has also experienced anti-Asian racism throughout my whole life, as well as a stroke survivor and someone living with PTSD who is constantly kind of feeling like they don't belong. And so I'm here to just, be in community with all of you and better educate myself around Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to share a victory? Okay. So as you reflect on what your victories are, what our victories are, I want to encourage us to always do that, to always remember what Marissa is lifting up is that bill passed because people did work. Everything that moves happens because people do work, right? And so we have to take time to celebrate the work of the people so that we can continue to be motivated to do work. Can't just be giving and giving and giving without saying thank you for that gift, right? So we want to thank everyone who has contributed to the world and contributes to the world every day. So we are going to talk about racism and white supremacy as we move into this conversation around solidarity. And so if you've read Teray and Hamilton's book, you know that they break down what is racism. I want us to remember that racism comes in several forms. We have individual racism, we have institutional racism. They don't talk very much about internalized racism, but they do talk about how even people who are people of color, who are Black, can advance the interests of white supremacy. We can think about examples like Jackie Lacey, right, who was absolutely a Black face on white supremacy. And there are many, many different examples of that. So again, individual, institutional, and internalized, right? Internalized racism. And then they also talk about how racism exists in both overt and covert forms. One of the ways I like to talk about that is as blatant white supremacy versus liberal white supremacy. And so what we see is blatant white supremacy here, right? Trump inarguably is a blatant white supremacist, right? When we think about the January 6th, I don't know what to call, white supremacist terrorists, right? They are blatant white supremacists. We're starting to see blatant white supremacy kind of be more present in different spaces in an ongoing way. So we know that some of these white supremacists are targeting Black Lives Matter. They're showing up at some of the demonstrations. We know even on Sunday, as we were leaving, there were a couple of white supremacists who were coming. So I guess there's a white supremacist time. They were really, really late because we started at 3 o'clock and we didn't leave until after 6. And I think as we were leaving is when they were pulling up. Maybe they overshot what CP time actually means. I don't know. But there's blatant white supremacy that is easy to identify, right? You know, we know that red caps replaced white hoods, right? We know that when they use the N-word, that's blatant white supremacy, right? We know that some of the policies that were implemented through the Trump regime were blatant white supremacist policies, right? And so it's easy to identify blatant white supremacists, right? One of the things that you'll see in that photo on the right is, I don't know about you, but every single Black person I've talked to has started to kind of even see the show of the American flag almost resonates in the same way as the show of the Confederate flag at this point, because you see it be used as a symbol of blatant white supremacy now, right? So it's both behind Donald Trump in that photo, but also anytime you see photos of these white supremacist rallies, they're also waving them. And so we need to think about, well, what are these symbols of hate, right? What are these symbols of white supremacy, which is actually bigger than hate, right? And so blatant white supremacy becomes something that we can point to really easily, identify really easily. We see it manifest in terms of rhetoric, in terms of policy, and in terms of violence. Rhetoric, policy, and violence, right? Or how we see blatant white supremacy resonate, right? But a tougher form of white supremacy is what I call liberal white supremacy, liberal white supremacy. So Joe Biden was presented to us as an alternative, as an antidote, as a counter to Donald Trump. But when we think about what he's done in his first 100 days, if we think about what he's prioritized as president of the United States, even though the rhetoric shifts, even though the rhetoric is, he actually said the words that he wants to end white supremacy, so far, not so good, right? So far, we haven't actually seen that happen. And if we go back and reach back into his not so distant history, we know that what he had ushered in beyond symbolism. So there's a symbolism that's inclusive, right? But beyond symbolism, what did the actual policy do, and what did it evoke among folks? And then my favorite liberal white supremacist, by favorite, I mean least favorite, right? Is Eric Garcetti. And many of you know him as the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. He likes to brag on the fact that, actually, it's not really a fact. He likes to pretend as if Ben Jealous, the former president of the NAACP, was his college roommate. He was not his college roommate. He was actually his college classmate. I have many, many classmates, many of whom I don't even know, right? He thinks that that makes him a liberal, that he can call on Ben Jealous. He likes to say that he was in the Peace Corps in Ethiopia. In fact, when he met with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles 7 years ago, because he hasn't agreed to meet with us since, he said, I understand Black people because I was in the Peace Corps in Ethiopia, right? He speaks Spanish, so that means that he is, you know, a liberal. We need to, when we think about liberal white supremacists, remember the rhetoric is one thing, but we have to look at the policy and what the policy inspires, even in terms of violence. So Eric Garcetti, for instance, his wife, Amy Wakeland, admits to calling police on Black Lives Matter demonstrators 82 times. And that's what we've been able to count. 82 times in the span of 1 year, 82 times. That's twice a week she's calling police on us, right? We need to think about what his most recent budget proposal for the 2021-2022 budget says, where he's increasing funding for police. We need to think about how he said that he was going to house people in Los Angeles, but didn't even take advantage of the 100% reimbursable federal funds that are available to house virtually every single unhoused person in the city. And now we're up to more than 50,000 unhoused folks who are not being placed in rooms, who are not being given permanent housing, which is what they actually need. So liberal white supremacy is about having the right rhetoric, having that Black friend who sits at the dinner table, having the right colors in the photo op, but initiating and encouraging policy that actually is white supremacist in nature. I also want to uplift that it's under Mayor Garcetti that LAPD has been given carte blanche to just assail not only protesters, but Black people, brown people, poor people, people with disabilities throughout the city of Los Angeles. So we have to check for liberal white supremacy. So if we're to go back and look at what Touré and Hamilton are saying in the Black Power book that we're all reading, when you talk about overt forms of racism, we see them in the form of blatant white supremacy, but there's also the covert forms that exist in liberal white supremacy. So how do we topple liberal white supremacy? How do we topple blatant white supremacy? As we get further into the readings, we're talking about politics, solidarity, and the myth of coalition. I want to encourage us in this conversation to think about what solidarity is. Think about what solidarity is. Solidarity is about a coming together. Oops. Let me go here and then I'll go back. It's about a coming together because we recognize that our interests are aligned and our vision is aligned. So as we think about this racial hierarchy, right? And this is from Omi and Wanat's Racial Formations, right? We can think about a hierarchy that places white folks at the top, right? White folks, regardless of desire to participate in racism and white supremacy, do reap the benefit of white supremacy. So even, and this is not about making the white folks in the class feel guilty. We don't want you to feel guilty because guilt has no place here and has no benefit here, right? Your guilt doesn't help us topple the system. What we want is you to take action and become an anti-racist, engage with us in a process of solidarity that kind of props up the structure that you see here, right? At the bottom is non-white folks, people of color, But really at the bottom of even that flank, of even that plank, is Black folks, right? Black people stand at the very bottom of virtually every single economic, social, and political measure. And so it's really important that as we talk about toppling structures, and we'll talk more about what it means to topple structures, about the need for an abolitionist frame. As we talk about toppling structures, it's important that we come together in solidarity. And so as you see in the slide, right, those systems that assail us, right, systems that are built on white supremacy, on sexism, on heterosexism, on transphobia and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and all of these other kind of forms of oppression, right? It can feel overwhelming because they've also erected structures like an educational system, like an economic system, like a system of housing, like media, right? That make us feel overwhelmed because we feel like little fish. But what we have to remember is solidarity reminds us that there are millions and billions of little fish. There are only a few big fish. So when the little fish come together, we can beat that big fish, right? And overwhelmingly topple those structures that big fish attempted to build for its own benefit. So I want to introduce some terms that I've developed as we talk about what is solidarity. And I want us to think about something that I call positional solidarity. Positional solidarity. Positional solidarity is when groups unite based on recognized shared positioning on the social hierarchy or shared treatment by societal institutions and systems. So then I give you a few examples. Shared neighborhoods and schools, over-criminalization of Black and Brown people, right? So for instance, we often speak in terms of Black and Brown because Black and Brown people wind up kind of experiencing the same oppressions more often than not. We live in the same neighborhoods. So what does that mean in terms of environmental racism, in terms of transportation systems, in terms of the schools that we attend, right? We share space, and so we experience many of the things that come with that space, right? We also experience an othering, right? That where Black folks and Brown folks are kind of these identities are heaped upon us, which make us the quintessential other. And so we share kind of these positions in the world that are very similar. Does anybody want to give us any other examples of positional solidarity? Positional solidarity. If not, we can go on. If you don't have one for us, that's fine. Okay, so there's another form of solidarity that I think is much deeper, right? And it's much harder to get to. And the reason it's deeper and harder to get to is because, but more important, is because positional solidarity can be fleeting. It can be fleeting. We don't always occupy the same spaces. And sometimes those who share positional solidarity are lured into believing that you just want to be the second to the bottom on that hierarchy. If you're the second to the bottom on that hierarchy, then that's a position worth preserving. And so they become more invested in institutions and structures. But ethical solidarity is about a shared moral obligation and vision for the world, a shared moral obligation and vision for the world. It means things like recognizing that when there's Black infant mortality that is worse in the United States than most developing nations, that should be a moral outrage, right? That when we talk about Black people dying of COVID-19 at 2 to 3 times our population share, everyone should be outraged, even if you don't share that position. When we talk about Black people killed by the police, and I think about what happened to all of these folks just over the last week, but especially the one that hit my heart last Tuesday was Ma'Khia Bryant, right? This little girl, the 16-year-old girl who needed help and was murdered by police at her home, right? And how all of these systems converged to steal the life of Ma'Khia Bryant. So we should all be outraged. We should all have a vision of undoing the current system of foster care, of undoing policing as we know it, of ushering in new systems where we build strong families and communities that wrap our arms around Ma'Khia Bryant, that allow her to grow into her fullest self. If you watched, I'm smiling because I've watched several of her TikToks, and just seeing the Black girl magic that she absolutely was helps us to know that were her life preserved, she was going to bring, she already did bring such joy and energy and power and laughter into this world. And so we should have a sense of ethics and morality and shared vision that says Ma'Khia Bryant's life was worth saving. And so that's ethical solidarity. How do we get to ethical solidarity? How do we get to solidarity in its truest and deepest form? I would submit that the only way to get there is by adopting an abolitionist frame. And so Angela Davis says, abolition is not primarily a negative strategy. It's not primarily about dismantling, getting rid of, but it's about re-envisioning. It's about building anew. And so I'm going to stop the share for just a moment because I want us to kind of ponder that, right? I want us to talk through what that means. Abolition is not primarily about dismantling. It's about dismantling, but that's not the primary piece, right? So what does that mean? If we think about abolition, what does it mean that it's not primarily about dismantling or getting rid of? That part is there. So let's actually focus on that. That part is there. What do we have to upend? What do we have to dismantle? And what do we have to get rid of? Somebody answer those questions. What do we have to dismantle and get rid of?
Chastity Nunez, she, her. I don't really have an organization, but I'm in San Gabriel, and we did develop over this last year the Human Equity Access and Relations Committee, kind of our DEI commission for the city, and I'm on that commission as a commissioner. And I joined the class just for this discussion and for just learning. And say what would we have to upend and what do we have to dismantle is just the status quo, essentially. I guess that's
what does the status quo mean? What do you mean by the status quo? Everything?
Well, not everything, but it's almost, well, essentially almost everything, because it is so based in a belief and mentality of white superiority that has been in place for so long and is so entrenched that essentially you are starting from scratch in some ways, I guess.
Great. So everything. You're not scared, Chastity. Everything.
I know I am, because that is a big task, but it's hard to find what to save. You almost have to take it down to a very small little layer of that pillar in terms of what to save and build on.
Thank you for that. Someone else, what do we need to upend, dismantle, get rid of? Or did Chastity cover it when she said everything? Becky, do you want to add?
Hi, yeah, I'm Becky, Avila, she, her, ella pronouns. I'm with Safe Place for Youth. Just touching on what's quite prominent at the moment is our apparatus of community safety. Policing is one example. So we have to upend that, but I think in turn, the second part of your question is we also have to rebuild and reimagine what that looks like and replace it with something. So just thinking about Angela Davis's comment about if it's not primarily about dismantling, I think it's primarily about, I don't know what the antonym of dismantling is, but rebuilding or replacing, if you will.
Great. Does one more person want to say what needs to be upended and dismantled?
I see Heather's hand right there. Go ahead.
Hi, Heather. That's my Heather. Hi, Heather.
My professor. Hi, Heather Miller. I'm a rabbi and I founded an organization called Keeping It Sacred. I'm here just to continue to refine my understanding of things and continue practicing talking about issues. And I think one of the things that we need to dismantle is the supremacy of money over humanity. And I think that especially in the white community, at some point we need to give up money, like we just do. We need to reallocate and be part of that. And I think that true liberation will not come without specifically white folks getting over this clinging to money and recognition that we need to reallocate.
Great, great. And so Becky started to get to it, that this is not just about what Angela Davis is saying is, yes, when we talk about abolition, we often talk about what needs to be upended. So we can talk about abolishing the police, abolishing prisons and jails. As an educator, I want to still abolish the current educational system because it is used as a tool to pull people in line, right? To make them kind of submit to these oppressive regimes. So we want to get rid of things. It doesn't mean we want to get rid of the concept. I think that Becky also said this, you know, that we still want community safety. We want to live in safe spaces. We want to create safe spaces. We're just recognizing that policing doesn't bring that to us, right? We still want to have ways of having wealth, however we define it, right? We just don't want to tether ourselves to capitalism, right? And so I think all of these things are things that bear conversation and do include some component of getting rid of something. But the larger piece that Angela Davis is getting to is that there are two ends of abolition, right? So when Mama Harriet Tubman said, I want to topple chattel slavery, in fact, I don't even know that she ever spoke those words, but the words she did speak are be free or die, right? So what was she imagining? What was she dreaming, right? In Robin Kelly's words, what was she freedom dreaming? And so she was dreaming about freedom. She was dreaming about what does freedom look like? So the abolition that was embodied in Mama Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and David Walker and Nat Turner and Gabriel Prosser and John Brown, right, was really about freedom for all people, especially Black people, right? Black people cannot be chattel. It's about upending chattel slavery, but it's about imagining and working towards what freedom looks like. And so I want us to just take a moment to think about what freedom looks like. As we think about what Chastity is sharing with us, there's very little in the existing system that's worth preserving. There's very little in the existing system that's worth preserving, right? So what is it that we want to build in its stead? When we think about familial structures, what familial structures do we want to invest in? What community safety plans do we want to have? What does health and health care look like? So I want us to just offer different visions for what different things can look like. So someone give us your vision for one of these systems or your vision for what freedom looks like.
I'm happy to jump in on this one.
Okay.
Something that I think about that, you know, what that looks like is like not just a prioritizing of mental health for everyone, but really being able to come to the table. And just as we see our normal body health and everything else, that the health of the mind, that the mind is treated in such a way that everyone has access to it, and that is like cared for in some way, and not just stigmatized, but as a caring, as a way of caring for community, that we care for the mind.
We care for the mind. We care for the mind. And who is the we, and how does that work?
I see everyone. I think everyone, as well as our institutions, our organizations, the people, how we are in family with one another, as well. I think about my family members as well, like being able to prioritize that within our families as well, that it's not just a thing like, oh, that means other this person, but how do we embrace them and bring them closer?
Great. Anybody else?
I can hop in. Hi, everyone. I'm Misha, you, she, her pronouns. I'm also from Safe Place for Youth, so I have the delight of working with Becky, who you heard from. Something that came to my mind was food access, right? A world where everybody has access to healthy, nourishing food, like year round. It's not a hassle, or more of a hassle for one family to bring it home than others. Right now that feels so impossible because of like food deserts or food apartheid, I've heard it been called more recently. And knowing that we actually have the resources to totally upending that and actually providing, and not just everybody in this country, but literally everyone who's living in the world right now, adequate and healthy food.
Great, because this system, and it's tied back to one of the things that Heather shared, is they try to dupe us into believing that we live in a world of scarcity, right? That everyone can't have food. But I think that what I hear you saying is that everybody can, right? Everybody can have not just food, but fresh, healthy food. There's plenty for all of us to have that, right? At a very basic level, we can have fresh, healthy, clean food. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. And let's get one more.
Hi, my name is Nicole. Pronouns are she and her. I work at I Thrive Games, and we are in the educational space. One thing that I'm really hoping to help create is just upending the way that education happens. I think that children have a unique genius, and I'd love to see tools and ways of teaching that help unearth and shine a light and blossom that genius, rather than forcing people to learn in ways that actually don't go along with what their work is to do here in the world. I think there's basic skills that help us to function as a society, but how do we teach people, or teach teens and students to find out what their ray is of contribution, rather than you have to do it like this or like that?
That's right. We should work together. Yes, that's right. Not just what we learn, but how we learn and why we're engaging with our young people in the way that we are, right? That they don't come into the classroom as empty vessels, as Paulo Freire talks about, right? That they come in with this base of knowledge, and their knowledge base doesn't just come from what they've read, it's from their experiences, it's from the wisdom of their grandmothers. It's all of these things that can inform an educational process that's truly liberatory. And so that's one of the things that I think we're seeking to do with this class, is engage in liberatory models of education, but also think about how to constantly grow what liberatory education looks like.
Yeah, thank you.
So is there anyone else who wants to share something, or should we move on? I want to assign you a little non-mandatory homework, if that's okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so here's your homework. In order to get to our radical imaginings, we have to steal back time to actually imagine. We have to engage in our freedom dreams. And actually, the last couple of weeks, I've done a terrible job at this, but this is what even the grounding at the beginning of this class is about getting back to the humanity and divinity of ourselves. Because the reason the system, one of the reasons the system is set up the way that it is to make you never have a free moment, is because our power really comes from our creativity, from our divinity, from our freedom to dream, from our investment in our imagination. And if we're constantly on this treadmill of having to earn a living, of having to shuttle our children to and from school, or figure out what they're doing on their Zoom class, or figuring out, now I'm gonna tell you all my woes, about how to get them a daily pass so they can go to school every day, right? About trying to figure out where they can get a COVID test for the next week, or they won't be able to go to school on Friday, right? All of these things that are coming, right, that keep us busy. The fact that I remember, and I'm not that old, but I remember when you used to be able to go home from work. Remember when you could go home from work? You got off work and you had a phone at your house, especially if your family didn't have a lot of money. All you had was a home phone. And I guess if there was an emergency, your boss could call you at home, but I never got one of those calls. I was still like a teenager at that point. But, you know, if I got off, I didn't go home thinking about whether or not somebody picked up their stuff off a layaway at the store I worked at, right? You were able to go home and you were able to engage with your family and engage with your neighborhood. And there wasn't very much on TV. I remember making appointment, like Thursday nights were our TV night, because before Bill Cosby was a rapist, or we knew he was a rapist, we loved the Cosby Show, right? There was a different world, and we watched those two shows, and that was it, because there was really nothing else to watch on TV. So we played checkers and Monopoly, and we played outside till the street lights came on, and we talked with each other, and it gave us time to collectively and individually invest in ourselves as divine and human beings. And so what I want us to do, what I want to encourage all of us to do, is steal back some time so that we can develop a vision statement. Without a vision for the world, it's very difficult to be an abolitionist. In fact, I would say it's impossible to be an abolitionist. So I'm going to encourage you to develop a vision statement. Oops, I didn't mean to pull mine up. That's mine. So don't use that one. This is what your vision statement should be. It should paint a picture. It should offer an overarching worldview. So not just of the systems that we just got through describing, but of the larger world. So beyond education, what does the world look like, feel like, taste like, sound like? You know, what smells are there, right? Mine is a mix of peach cobbler and jasmine, right? What does that, and you know what I kind of like the musty scent of my 11-year-old son. It smells like joy. It's Black boy joy, right? So what does that feel like? Your vision statement should be narrow enough that it's clear in its direction and prescription, so it can't be hijacked by some group that you're not going to agree with, right? It should be agreeable to and within the grasp of targeted masses, because your vision statement is for you and it's also for the collective, right? It should be concise, meaning you're writing a page, not a book, a paragraph, not a complete essay, right? It should allow for the building out of more clearly defined goals. Goals exist at a systemic level. We'll do that later after you develop your vision statement. It should be achievable through required collective action. Remember, when we fight, we win. So your vision statement is something that can be fought for and won. So here's just an example of mine. And this is something I go back to at least a couple times a year and tweak, right? I believe in the development of a world society that respects the humanity and divinity of life, that honors the connections with our creator, our ancestors, our children, our earth, humanity, and all that has and gives life, that provides for the material needs of every human being, nourishing food, clean water, warm, safe shelter, quality education, holistic healthcare, a healthy and peaceful environment, a safe and just society. It nurtures the art of individuals that he may offer the universe the full potential of the blessed gifts with which they have been endowed. ameliorates class divisions by protecting against poverty and guarding against greed and overindulgence, restores, honors, and invokes the sacred knowledge, histories, beliefs, cultures, and practices indigenous to African and Native people globally, recognizes and celebrates the essence of individuals as extensions of and contributors to a larger living whole. So that's the length you're looking at, right? It can be shorter, but you don't want it to be much longer. But it encapsulates really kind of the world that I see. So I started out with a vision for the world, and that's what I wrote. So I want to encourage you to do that. I also want to encourage you to be active and remember that there are things that you can do right now in this moment. There's actions coming up. If you didn't get enough of this conversation today, then come out today, come out this afternoon. And especially if you're a member of a labor union, our End Police Association's rally is every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock in front of the ACLU building, 1313 West 8th Street. And you can join us. There's always music. There's always lots of great energy. So again, join us on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. People's Budget LA. What is this Wednesday? Why is that here? What is that? I don't know. We're deleting that. I think that was supposed to be from last week. Sorry about that. Okay, This Is Not a Drill, which is our online political education for Black Lives Matter. This week, tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about May Day. Baba Akili is going to lead that conversation with several labor leaders and scholars. And then a week from then, make an appointment for that. Set your calendar, because we're going to give the full presentation of the People's Budget next Thursday, May 6th at 7 p.m. on Facebook. If you're not doing anything this weekend, or if your plans can change, please join us for the Boyle Heights May Day March, Saturday, May 1st at 11 a.m. We're going to start at Chavez and Matthews. This is led by Centro CSO and Carlos Montes, who many of you know is the co-founder of the Brown Berets. He's been a tremendous partner, a tremendous partner in ethical solidarity with Black Lives Matter, but also with the Black freedom struggle since the 1960s, since he was a young person himself. And so we ask you to join us, bring your kids. I always bring mine. Here's some things that you can do right now. Fill out the People's Budget survey. That's at peoplesbudgetla.com/survey, and share it. If you're part of an organization, have everybody complete it, right? If you are part of a congregation, send it out to all of the folks in your congregation. If you're in a sorority, a neighborhood organization, share it, because we need as many people to weigh in as possible. And then we're trying to get rid of the police chief. You can sign the petition at tinyurl.com/FireLAPD-Chief-Moore. We know that they think that because police brutalized and beat protesters over the course of the last year, what they're saying needs to happen is they should be given more money for training. We don't need them trained. We need them off the streets where they brutalize and target us. And so we're saying chop from the top and get rid of the police chief. Here's other ways you can plug in. Move the Crowd is on Monday mornings at 7 a.m. on KPFK. And here's some Twitter handles to follow. And I think we have about 3 minutes. Oh, one more announcement that I forgot to put in the in this share is, what is it? freerochellemcgee.org. I'll put it in the chat. We know that the longest held political prisoner is Rochelle McGee, who initially went to prison on a charge, oh, thank you, Tyler, on a charge for a dime bag of weed. He has been in prison for 53 years. We don't believe an 82-year-old man belongs in prison. We know that we just lost Chip Fitzgerald, who was a political prisoner. We lost him a few weeks ago. We want to free Rochelle McGee, so please go to freerochellemcgee.org to learn a little more about it. And so we now have 2 minutes for our closing questions and thoughts and anything else that you want to share. Nobody wants to unmute themselves and share?
I already did, but I'll do it again. This is Nicole. I just really appreciate broadening my understanding of what abolition means. And this element of it's about creating anew really lit me up. And thank you for that.
Good. Let's thank Angela Davis for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, I hope to see some of you all in the streets over the course of the next week. I think we're going to be posting all of these things on the site, and I'm looking forward to you all sharing, so be prepared, sharing some of your vision statements with us next week. Thank y'all.
Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.